All right, am I on? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. This is Reynald. I will be your host for today's live stream. We already have several people in the chat. Michael Montalvo, hello. Daniel Chavez, Sarab Chopra. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. So excited for this podcast. But before we jump right into it, it is Thursday. So I want you guys to enjoy our Throwback TikTok Thursday segment. Have you ever had code in Stack Overflow or anywhere for that matter that you wanted explained to you? GitHub Copilot Labs does exactly that. It's a companion extension to GitHub Copilot. So if you have them both installed, just click on the Copilot icon and in a new file, paste the code in, highlight it, and then you can make sure that you select Explain Code and choose Ask a Copilot, and it'll give a human readable explanation of the code. And if you wanted a more concise bullet point explanation, you could just choose Code does the following, ask Copilot, and a more concise explanation is listed. Nice. There's a lot going on with Copilot and AI in general, so you guys have to check out our channel and some of the videos that we're rolling out. But it's an exciting time, and I am psyched about that. But I'm even more excited about our guest today, who is Michael Chan, and he is a DX engineer at Chromatic. He's also the host of a really cool podcast, and there was a React documentary that was created, and he's like definitely plays a key role in that. So check that out. I love when they have tech content that spins it in an interesting way, and I enjoyed watching it. So definitely check that out. But he's also got a YouTube channel for covering content creation tools, tips, and tech for remote educators, and a lot more. But today's topic is going to be all about Vim. So let's bring him on so he could tell us more about it. Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful morning here. We kind of stopped getting rain in San Diego, and I know that nobody wants to hear people from San Diego complaining about rain, so I'll stop. But it's great. It's great. Having a great day. Glad to be here.
Nice. So go ahead. Let's jump right in. What are you going to be chatting with us about?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Vim, but particularly in VS Code. And I think, uh, you know, learning Vim inside of VS Code is a really fascinating type of thing because, there's a lot of things that you have to know in order to just use Vim at all. There's that meme about how hard it is to just get out of Vim, how to quit Vim. And I think one thing that's really fun about learning Vim inside of VS Code is it's just an add-on. So if you're already good with VS Code, or maybe you're just starting with VS Code, you can learn all of the VS Code stuff, and then you can kind of augment your actual editing experience with some of the really cool stuff that Vim offers, because there's a really great Vim plugin for VS Code. And so today, my hope is that we'll just kind of be able to cover some of the things that I find like incredibly useful from Vim without having to do all of that precursor of, yeah.
Okay, so before we get into that, can you tell some of us what Vim is? Some of us know
Okay, sure.
it, some other developers that never even touched it.
Let's do that. Let's do that. So there's two parts of Vim. So Vim, if you're not familiar with it, if this is the first time that you've ever heard the word Vim, or maybe you've only heard it used as a cleaning product before, Vim is an editor. It's one of the first editors, that was ever popularized, and it exists in a terminal. And so there's all these commands that you can use to navigate code specifically inside of a terminal. So this is used before we had access to mice and things like that.
Is it its own terminal, or is it like something that works with other terminals?
Yeah, so it's an application inside of a terminal. So it'll just it's just made for editing text, but it's just like any other kind of terminal application where you fire it up and it's going to do its thing.
Got it. All right, cool.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, if we wanted to, I could open something up in Vim if you wanted to see the actual editor. So if I open up a terminal over here, gonna pull that over. Oh, I'm gonna have to give me just a second. Sorry. Okay, cool. I'm back. So like this is my site right here. I'm just in a terminal, so terminal right up here. I can type vim dot, and this will open up the whole project inside of Vim in my terminal. And so it's just a text-based editor. I can go into these CSS files. It has a navigator. Open this up, and then I am working inside of Vim. Now, one of the things that's kind of annoying about Vim
Mhm.
is that it doesn't have a really great package management system. So, something like VS Code, it's so easy to get packages. You just open up that extension pane, you search for a package, and likely there's something that you need. So right now we see this is just a CSS file, but there's no highlighting or anything like that. And adding those packages in Vim can be like a real nightmare. It's not nearly as ergonomic as some of the tools that we have. So while this is a great editor, it's kind of it doesn't have those modern conveniences. So
So, so now that you mentioned that, let me just throw in one question someone mentioned, and it's not to get a sidetrack. It's probably just a yes or no. But Tayoma Deeve asks, could you please also tell us how to use Vim for VS Code along with GitHub Copilot? Now, do you know of any potential of using AI with Vim that you've heard of so far? I know a lot of
that's
new stuff's coming out with Copilot. I haven't heard anything in terms of Vim yet, but
yeah, that's a good question. I have not I guess in the way that I have used GitHub Copilot, I haven't had any problems per se, but I kind of do it where I'll put in like a code comment like, hey, I want a function that, takes a string and appends exclamation points to it.
mhm.
Um, so that's how I do it, and then usually you can just like enter tab complete on that, and so there's really no issues there. And then once the code's in there, that's when I would use Vim. So I don't know of any particular issues with that, but besides kind of prompting it for the code and then editing the code once it's in there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you tried to experiment with it with Vim. Um, all right. Yeah, go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So Vim is an editor on its own, but Vim has a really unique way of navigating code. So it's what's known as a modal editor, and you can have different modes. And I'll just kind of show you, before we dive in, I'll show you some of the things. So right now I am in normal mode, and I can't type any characters. So you're just gonna have to believe me. But like I can't type because every key on my keyboard is in normal mode, Vim normal mode, a macro where it's going to instruct Vim to do some type of action on the text. Now,
Right.
if you watch here, one of those actions is I, which it puts me into insert mode. And so if I hit I, it's going to put me in insert mode, and then I can type. So every browser is kind of like Vim's insert mode. And the way that I think about it is like every browser every text editor that we use today is kind of like a Vim in insert mode, and you can escape out into other modes. So there's the normal mode, which we'll focus a lot on today. We have a visual mode. So if I hit V, it goes into visual mode, which allows me to do visual selections. There's even a replace mode where I can kind of type over the letters that are there,
Yeah, and
all kinds of stuff.
I actually just noticed it right now. Folks, at the on the blue bar at the bottom, the modes that he was mentioning was showing up like insert and visual. It's like
Yeah.
at the very bottom, you'll see the modes there.
Yep. So right there. So if I hit I, I'm in insert mode. If I hit escape again, I'm in normal mode. And then Shift R will put me in replace mode. So there's a ton of really cool modes that you can enter. And actually, let me keycaster. I have this set up so that we can Yeah.
Now, is this because you've already set up the plugin for Vim with VS Code, or we didn't even get to that yet?
Yeah, so we can get there right now. So the plugin that I use is so anyway, to kind of wrap up that part of it, there are two pieces of Vim. There's Vim the editor, and then Vim Motions, people often call them, which is the macro system that you use from Vim that you can transport into pretty much any editor. So the way that you enable that is through this. You just open up your extensions pane. The one that I use is I just type Vim, and it's this one, the Vim or VS Code Vim. And
Okay.
it's just Vim emulator for VS Code. It's great. I have not had any problems. There are some, kind of minor inconsistencies or, missing features from the full Vim, but overall, for the type of editing that I do, it's been extremely feature complete and awesome. And you'll see a lot of the cool things that you can do with it today.
Nice. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, so we can do that. And then one thing that I think is probably one of the most important things, and then we'll actually talk about editing. One of the most important things I think when you're starting, like if this is your first time with Vim at all, you're not familiar with it, you're going to do this. Vim start in insert mode right here. So if you look for this, this is a really cool feature in Vim where if you install the Vim plugin right away, if I open or let's see. Oh, nope. I'm in a markdown file. Okay. B. Let's open this. So if I open this CSS file, it's going to put me automatically into normal mode. Now that's the mode where I can't type, but every one of my keys on the keyboard is some kind of macro. Now that can be super disorienting if you're coming from a regular editor. So once you install this plugin, if you get settings back up again, you do Vim start in insert mode. What that'll do is it will start you in the mode that you're most accustomed to, which is starting in insert mode, which makes it kind of like normal VS Code.
Okay.
So if I close these and I open this up, now I'm in insert mode already. I can type like I normally do, but then as soon as I hit escape, that puts me into the Vim normal mode.
So I noticed on the blue bar it wasn't showing the modes anymore. Any particular reason for that?
That's a good question. I don't know.
But on your end it is working though, right?
Yeah, it's still working.
Okay.
Alrighty. Cool. Yeah. So are we ready to kind of like dive in, jump into some stuff?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think one of the first things, like if I could just share like one command with you that I think really like kind of changes everything for me, it's to work with to change things inside and around quotes. So one of my favorite things to do inside of Vim, I think something that like really kind of changes the game is thinking about things in terms of kind of editing blocks. So a lot of times if I have a mouse, let's go into insert mode. If I have a mouse, I'm going to like kind of grab from like the beginning of this character to the end of this character and then like do a thing. That's not like particularly thoughtful way to work, right? Because it's just like start character, end character. So one thing that I really like about using Vim is that we can kind of think about these things more as in terms of our intent. So here, if I wanted to delete or change this selector, I would go in here and then I would start like typing. Oh, I need to be in insert mode. Go in here, select that, and then start typing my new thing. Now, the cool thing about Vim is that we can just tell it what we want to do. So here I'll use change. So I quotes. So that's change inside quotes. And I'll just delete the whole thing, put me in insert mode, and then I can start typing.
It's like
So it saves.
it's like shortcuts on steroids almost.
Yes, exactly. And so it's a way to think about, like, it's just a way to think about kind of manipulating code. Now we can actually do some really cool things with that too. So I showed you. It looks like my, yeah. It's funny. This I have Keycaster on here, but it doesn't seem to be showing on the screen that we're. Doesn't want to show on this screen. Let me see if I can use a different one. That'll work. Doesn't like the full screen. There we go. Okay, cool.
What's
Um,
KeyCap?
hmm? Oh, Keycaster shows. It's just a program that will show the keys as I'm typing them. So if you look in the bottom corner, it'll show the key that I typed.
Got it.
But it wasn't working with my full screen.
Okay.
Okay, so go change inside quotes, and we can just start. Now we can just we're in insert mode, and we can start typing. We can also do some really cool stuff. So let's say we wanted to make this, class name a variable. So we're on this header. We can do change around quotes. That's going to grab the whole thing. We can put some curly braces here. So this is React. And header classes. And then let classes equal. And then P to paste in what we had before.
Cool.
So there's a lot of, oh, shoot, named this the wrong thing though, didn't I? Okay. So yeah, so there's a lot of really cool things. So if I could kind of like share one thing, it would just be that something that I use all the time is that CI double quotes, CA double quotes. I'm regularly changing things from kind of inside of these strings. But yeah, so that's I mean, that's kind of like one of the biggest things. Now, so far we've been using the change, so change inside double quotes, but there's another modifier that's also really helpful. So let's say that I just wanted to delete what was in there. I can say delete inside quotes, and I'm still in normal mode, so I can do all of my Vim stuff. So that's like a slight modifier there. Yeah, any questions so far?
Let's go through some of the comments here. A lot of them are just Peanut Celery says, I love Vim, but the configuration is horrific. Ben Hurt says, the hardest part I ever had was closing Vim the first time. I think we could all relate with that. With using it with VS Code, you probably won't have that problem. So just in general, you find that with using with VS Code, it's making life a little easier for the new people with Vim, you think?
Yeah, I think so. So I guess, this is probably like something that brought me to Vim was I started editing code a long time ago in an editor called TextMate, and it had a ton of really cool key bindings, but they stopped maintaining the text editor. And when they stopped maintaining the text editor, like all of my key bindings were not useful to me anymore. And I think Sublime Text and some other editors had adopted or like had modes where you could use some of those key bindings. But then anytime you looked at documentation, it was kind of off from the standard key bindings, and it was like really kind of frustrating. And so I was like, well, if it seems like a lot of these editors have some type of like Vim emulation in them. And so if I want to be useful, like across all editors, if this happens again in, TextMate and I'm in a different editor, then it'd be useful to just have like some standard text editing type of tools. And I think that that's where Vim comes in. And I've used Vim in, Vim proper, Emacs, Atom, VS Code, some of the JetBrains tools, and then even in like a lot of online editors too. So, if a lot of React developers use Code Sandbox, that has Vim support, CodePen, a lot of them have Vim support, which is great.
Nice. Titanium Typo, I love that name, by the way, says NeoVim is amazing. I love the config. I think that's what makes it fun. But if you want to skip the config, you can grab a pre-configured one like Chad Vim. Now, NeoVim, is this just like another tool that's like Vim, another emulator?
Yeah, so NeoVim is, let's see, NeoVim. So NeoVim is a fork, I think. I'm not exactly sure, but NeoVim is a different version of Vim. It's significantly newer. It has a lot of excitement around it. It has support for, I think, like language server processors. It's like much more modern, and I think all the configs done in Lua. Yeah, so it uses Lua over Vim script. So if you're super into Lua, it's I mean, anything's better than Vim script though. Vim script is absolutely terrible. It's good for nothing. Yeah, so yeah. So yeah, NeoVim's a great editor, for sure.
All right.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, let's continue.
Yeah, cool. So let's see. Yeah, so let's kind of go from there. So one thing that I think is helpful when learning how to work in Vim is just kind of understanding. Actually, I'm going to type out. I'm going to kind of put in comments some of the commands that we've done. So CI double quote is that kind of change inside quotes. We had change around quotes, which changed this, put us into insert mode, and it copied it into our clipboard. And then we also covered, was it delete inside and delete around quotes. Now these are kind of like, I think of these as like single kind of commands, but they are like kind of, as you can see, a composition of different motions. And so let me show you one more actually. So we can also do this with tags. So I've shown you how to do double quotes, but we can also, if we're using markup, we can do things like, you know, change inside tag, and that will preserve this p tag but delete everything inside of it and put it in insert mode, so we can now type in whatever we want. We can also say delete around tag, which just deletes that tag, gets rid of that tag entirely, or change around change around tag, which will kind of put us in insert mode. So the biggest difference between delete and change is that it's delete plus an insert. So let's see. So,
by the way, I started adding some of Vim background music just to add to the theme. If it's too loud, let me know. Sometimes the StreamYard like blasts us, but if you can't hear it, let me know and I'll bump up the volume too.
nice. We can also do stuff like, you know, inside of these parentheses. So anything that we want, we can so change inside parentheses. That will put us in insert mode inside of these parens. All of these commands are composable, so we can do whatever we want with them. Okay, so one thing that is kind of complicated about Vim at first is that it can be hard sometimes to visualize what the affected area will be. And so for that, we can do insert mode. Insert mode. So insert mode is like a selection, or sorry, visual mode. It's like a selection, like we would do with our cursor, except it's all keyboard based. So we can go into visual mode by hitting V. That puts us into visual mode. And from here, if we want, we can actually just use our arrow keys.
Okay.
But there's a lot of extra cool things that we can do if we use kind of some of Vim's tools for navigating code. Sorry, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. So this just puts us in a visual mode where we can make our selections. And Vim has some really cool ways of making those selections. So if we go into a visual mode, we can go to the end of words by hitting E. So E will take us to the end of the next word. This is probably not like a great example. Let me get our README file. This will be easier. So if I go into visual insert, we can go E, which will take us to the end of the next word.
Got it. All right.
We can go back to the beginning of a word by hitting B. So
Now
E.
this makes it easier, like if you're about to copy or cut a section of a line and instead of scrolling, it's just easier to use this command. Is that why?
Yeah, so right now I'm just kind of showing you how like a visual mode works, because there's a lot of shortcuts that you can do, but starting with visual mode can sometimes help you visualize what Vim is going to be doing when you run those commands. So like right here, if I hit V, it's gonna, or capital V, it's gonna select this entire line, right? And then I could hit delete, right? But there's also a capital D, which just, or sorry, double D, which just like deletes the line. But it can be helpful sometimes, like when you're starting to know like what those visual selections are. So like if we're in this code, if I say V inside parentheses, we can see the selection that it's going to make, as
Okay.
opposed to like D inside parentheses would just kind of like delete that. So if you want to see that first, you can use the visual mode to do
Good.
that, which
So
is
it's
really
really
helpful.
good for anyone that's new, so you could know what text is going to be affected by your command.
Correct. Yeah, it's a really great. I don't end up using visual mode a lot, because I know if I want to delete this tag, I can just do DAT. Whoops. But if I want to, if I'm learning, I can do VAT and make the visual section first, and then kind of do my delete, which is really helpful.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. So that's visual mode, and then it's also a really handy way to kind of learn the motions. So you can kind of understand a little bit more about how to interact with word objects. So something that's cool is like if you're on your cursor, but you're like in the middle of a word and you want to start making a selection, well, you'd have to like actually like navigate back and then do that, which is fine in this case, but it could be kind of difficult for like large words. Here, anywhere we're in the word, we can just say VIW, which is visually select inside word, or change inside word, which will delete that word, put us in insert mode, and then we can change that.
Cool. Daniel Chavez has a quick question. He says, I know the site Vim Adventures is to practice Vim. Is there another way?
Yeah, so there's so many great Vim tools. Vim Adventures is a great one. There's also just the Vim tutor. So I think if I go back over here, open up a terminal, I think it's just Vim tutor.
Silver Plastic responded also saying to use the Vim. Yeah, that's what you just mentioned, the Vim tutor.
Yeah, so Vim tutor is great. It will kind of teach you from the perspective of using Vim as an editor. So it's going to run you through things like this where, hey, use H, J, K, and L to navigate, which is fine. But also you have arrow keys. So it's not necessarily the most helpful thing to learn right in the beginning. Yeah, and then it shows you how to quit. Like all of these things that are very Vim specific, that don't necessarily, still apply, but aren't critically important inside of an emulated environment.
Okay. Still good to know.
But yeah, it'll give you instructions. So we'll go back up here. We can go here and kind of fix this line. So it's saying like, oh, hey, use the X key to delete unwanted characters. So we'll hit X there. We'll move. Oh, nope, that one's right. So we'll go to the end. We're going to go back there. And then there's just these little assignments that'll help you kind of really put some of this stuff into your muscle memory. So yeah, I think anything that gives you a chance to explore and like gives you some like assignments is going to be a really great way to learn this stuff.
Nice. Now there was a comment earlier that I missed by Ben Hoy. He says, sometimes I copy and cursor move unexpectedly. So I just want to know how to copy and paste properly.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that for sure. So there yeah, let's jump into copy and pasting. So one thing that's really cool, and I showed you up here, and we can do this again, but if I go here, um, when I make a cut, that's gonna put it inside of Vim's register as they call it yanks and pace, I think, or puts or place, I think it is.
Okay.
I can never remember. But so like if I we'll use our visual select. So visually select around the quotes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm going to, let's say, change that. So we'll hit C to change it. And we'll put this inside a variable. So this will be image classes. And then I'll go up here. And what I want to do now is place that. So I have it inside of my, Vim copy registry, whatever that is. I can't remember the name of it. And I can place that with P. So that's going to take what I had cut from, down here and kind of place it wherever I want to. Now there's a couple options. There's the lowercase p, which just puts it right where you're at or below. And then there's an uppercase P, which actually, oh, I need another, because I'm on a new line, so it's not doing that. So back, sorry. So V around, double quotes, delete, image classes, go up, and then we can put it this is so weird. Oh, because it was in line. That's my problem. So it changes a little bit. Sorry, sometimes I get confused too. So clearly,
So what happened? What happened to some of
yeah.
that?
So if we have block text like this, so if I yank this whole thing and paste it, it's gonna lowercase p is gonna put it below. Actually, here, let's do the paste so we can see what's happening easier. So if I delete that, if we put it lowercase p is going to put this below if it's a block.
Okay.
And then uppercase P is going to put it above if it's a block. Now in this case, I had like an inline selection, so it's just going to paste it in line, and so I can show you kind of the difference there. So let's put this character here. So yeah, so I have an inline selection now. If I hit Shift P, that's going to put it before this delimiter. And if I hit P, it's going to put it after that. So it's kind of like, like in web development, you have like blocks and spans. So it's kind of the same concept.
Okay.
If you have an inline selection, that's going to be kind of before or after a character. If you have block selection, it's going to be before or after a line.
Okay, so you were originally trying to like paste it like above or below, but because we were in line, it was pasting it on the same line. Is that
correct? Yep, exactly. So from there we can do our assignment. So let's image classes equal app logo, and then we're good. So that is kind of, I mean, again, this is a reiteration of that, but hopefully that kind of like helps clarify some of the copy and pasting. Does that answer the question, or is there still more on that?
Yeah. Well, if it answered the question, feel free to like mention that in the comment to the person that asked that question. I was just
okay, cool.
Like another question right here. Can I, okay, our producer just brought it up. Can I use copy with VS Code system clipboard, not Vim yank style? That's so violent.
Yeah, so you can make the as far as I remember, you can make the selection if you wanted to um with Vim, and then just do command copy, and then use the command V VS Code clipboard if you want to do that. Now they do behave differently. So one thing that I have noticed is
Mhm.
if you have different windows. So I can yank this in a Vim environment and then paste it or place it um, in another file, no problem.
No.
But if I have two Vim windows, this won't work across that. And so I will have to use the Vim clipboard, sorry, the VS Code clipboard to copy that block of code. So I can still make the selection that I want, but I'm gonna have to use the, or like I guess system clipboard in order to copy that across VS Code window instances.
Okay, cool. Now, is there like an official like a reference visual chart for all the shortcuts that you ever use, or is it
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good point. So this is the one that I learned on. There could be, I'm sure that there's many more. But I found this one, at the time that I started picking up certain Vim techniques,
okay? Okay.
and I found this really helpful. It is an extremely confusing chart.
I was gonna say, like, the chart's supposed to make your life easier, and the chart's like, here you go, algebra right in front of you.
Yeah, and so I think for that reason, I think that things like this can be really helpful cheat sheet
Mhm.
um, when you've already started to kind of decide some things that you want to learn. But I think that kind of figuring out repeated tasks first and asking yourself, how could I improve this workflow with Vim is probably the better way to go about it. And then maybe have one of these cheat sheets just so you can kind of remember exactly what those things are, things, what
Yeah.
exactly those are.
All right. It's like Copilot. You got to know how to program first before to really use that AI. Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
or how to-
You have to know exactly the words that you want to use, or else it's just going to be totally confused.
yeah, or get a cheat sheet for that cheat sheet.
Totally. So yeah, so that's I saw a question of like why you would want to use Vim inside an editor like VS Code. I think there's a couple things. I think one, it augments the VS Code is really great for all of the things around the code. So like navigation, you have like all these really great things. You have Git, kind of with all of these things. There's so many incredible things inside of VS Code. You have a debugger, like it's awesome. But sometimes I want to like move kind of more intentionally around actually like editing the code, and that's what I think Vim is really useful for.
Mm, okay.
Or Vim motions, rather. What Vim motions are really useful for.
Nice.
Um. So yeah, I think let me show you a couple other things as well. Uh, One thing that's really cool about this plugin in particular is that it comes bundled with a couple of really great uh, Vim plugins made by T Pope. Originally, they're really fantastic, and honestly, a lot of people who use Vim, uh, wouldn't use it if it weren't for T Pope and some of the amazing plugins that they've made. Uh, Honestly, they made like Vim 1,000 times better. So one of the cool things is this plugin called Surround. So Surround allows you to do some really cool stuff with selection. So let me just select this text. Let's say this is something that I wanted to wrap inside of double quotes. Well, if I were going to do that with a mouse, I'd go over here, insert mode. Man, this is not like in my I don't know my setup today. Okay. Go over here, I'd put a single quote or double quotes, and then go over here and then do another double quote. Now, something that's cool about the Vim Surround plugin and the emulation is that I can make my visual selection, hit a capital S, and then
Mhm.
the character that I want to wrap that text in, and then, wrap it around, which is really cool. I can also do something where I kind of, in the spirit of our change macro that we had talked about earlier, we can do change surrounding double quotes with backticks. Oh my gosh. Sometimes I'm going to say sometimes Markdown doesn't love me. So change surrounding double quotes with backticks. You can do stuff like that. I find that really, really helpful sometimes when I'm in a JavaScript file, and I want to, do some type of interpolation. And so change surrounding single quotes with backticks, and then I can easily put my $sign, do my interpolation, and it didn't, do that really quickly instead of having to kind of go and manually change those characters, which is really nice.
Nice. So it seems like in general, like if someone's going to be embracing Vim, they need to be aware that like the learning curve might be slow at the very beginning, but once you have like your keystrokes and commands like memorized, it really boosts that productivity a lot more later on, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's why I wanted to start today with these kind of like change inside, change around, surround, because I think that working with these types of using that is really helpful right off the bat. And it's less like, like I'm learning Vim, and it's more like, oh, hey, I'm learning like a helpful tool to kind of help me with some of these things that are kind of hard to reach, right? It's like I got to go to the beginning of this thing and then the end of this thing and, change my thing. I saw a question about how that works with tags. And yes, that does also work with tags. So let's find a tag here.
Yeah, sure, for
So,
HTML tags.
yeah, so we can do change surrounding, so CS and then T again. And then we do a left bracket, and it'll give us this prompt up here, like which tag do we want to use? And we'll say, make this a, I don't know, block quote tag. And so then that'll change that. So yes, it does work with tags inside of HTML and JSX as well.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I was wondering, do you want to go through some navigation stuff? We could kind of tackle some of that really quick if we wanted to.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And after that, we could like move on to our next segment since we're the final quarter of the hour.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's just do some of the. I'll just kind of run through some of the things that I find really helpful in navigation. So there's a couple things that are really useful. One thing to know about Vim is that G and Z are both totally overloaded. Those are like the junk drawers of Vim. And so there's a lot of commands that will either be like prefixed with G or prefixed with Z. And there's not a lot of kind of like logic around them. So C can be like, oh, C is for changing stuff and D is for deleting stuff. G and Z, there's no hope. But G by default is really helpful for navigation. So something that I really like is when we're in normal mode, we can see right here, we can do GG, that takes us to the top of a file. We can do capital G, which takes us to the bottom of a file. And we can use a number like 30, capital G to jump directly to a line. So GG top, capital G bottom, GG top again. And then if we wanted to jump to line 11, capital G.
Now, what you just showed us with like GG top, was that in the cheat sheet that we saw earlier, the complicated cheat sheet, or?
Yeah, let's go over here. I think that GG is in here somewhere. You might see it. Yeah, there we go. Number 6, GG, top of file.
Okay.
And then, oh yeah, actually, there's a really cool one too. So if we go to line 2, we can do GF, and that goes to the file under the cursor. Now, obviously, there's ways to do this in VS Code. You can, what is it, F12 or something like that? So, you can do it either way, but,
Okay.
I know on my Mac specifically, I have to use function key to hit F12. So GF can be a real, it's closer a lot of times, which is really nice.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you showed like on the chart also, because now that we saw the functionality and then we saw where it was on the chart, then the chart seems a little bit less scary. It's like, okay, I kind of see how to read that chart now based on what I just saw.
Yeah, yeah. And there's some cool things too, like if we do you know, right curly brace is a way to like navigate through chunks of code. So it'll go to the next like big space, which is really nice if you're navigating big blocks of code, but you want to see like kind of all the function headers and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
which is really helpful. And what is it? Another we can use. Let me find a JavaScript file for parentheses and brackets and other like programming characters. We can use percent to jump to the corresponding character. So here I'm on that front paren, and then I can jump with the percent. Same for these. So
Nice.
those are some cool navigation things which are really helpful.
Okay.
And then one of my favorites actually is plus. Shoot. Come on. Sometimes I still get confused. So plus will take you to the first non-white space character on a line, which can actually be really helpful a lot of times. So plus and then minus will do kind of the same reverse. So you can go back, but to the first non-white space character. So it avoids all the tabs, which is pretty helpful.
So it skips the non-whites.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so it goes to the first. It'll go down by the first non-white space character. So
Okay.
it's avoiding all of these tabs or spaces right here.
Got it. Got it. There's a confusing comment right here. I'm not sure if you understand what they're talking about. Fortino Samuel Valsquez Lizarraga says available. Let some read only. You might need to elaborate, Tino. Do you know what he's talking?
Let's see. I
Available.
don't.
Some read only.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I'd love to learn more, but yeah, I don't quite know what that means. Maybe it's an answer to another question.
Yeah, Fortino, elaborate on that. That's I want to be confused. I look at the chart.
Yeah, and then we'll jump through some other ones which are really helpful. So like I've made some changes to this file, and then if I try to close this, it's gonna bring up a like, do you want to save or not save, which is fine. But if I know that I don't want to save the changes, so there's we can do capital Z is one of the save options. So if I do ZZ, it'll hit save and accept the changes. Right. And so I've made changes to this one. Yeah. Okay. And then if I hit Z, capital Q, it'll close that file, but without saving the changes. But because we've already used that command, it doesn't prompt us also. So we're like, okay, I know that I want to just ditch these changes, capital Z, Q, capital Z, capital Q, and then just kind of like gets it out of there, which is really nice. We can also paginate. So D will page down by half pages. Control U will page up by half pages. And then Control F will page down by full pages, and Control B will page up by full pages. We can also kind of move text to certain parts. So let's say that here, let me get more kind of middle of this. So let's say that I want to move this line to the top of the file. We can use ZT for top, ZB for bottom, or ZZ to put it right in the middle, which is really nice because sometimes you find yourself kind of like in an awkward spot. You just want it to be in the middle. I use ZZ all the time to just be like, oh, I'll put this in the middle of my my view. So yeah, so really cool stuff. I think, yeah. If we have time for one more, I'll show like some really wild one. But if not, we can move on.
Yeah. Let's do one more.
Okay, cool. So in Vim, there's also this idea of exec mode, which is really interesting. where you can actually like type in commands. So let me see. Let me find. I guess this will probably do. Okay, so we have logo here. So we can do colon, which allow us to execute commands. Watch this part of the screen right here. So we have
Okay.
colon there, and we can type anywhere on this line. So let's go to the beginning character. So we do colon S, and we can search for the word logo. We see that this integration is showing kind of what our search is finding, and we can change that to whatever we want. We can call that Lego. And you'll notice that it just changed that one, but we can put a G at the end of that, and then it's going to change everything on that line. Now, if we want, we can also do this for the whole file. Go back here, we can do %, and now that's going to change. Oops, I did $% Now that's going to change logo to Lego everywhere. So we can see all the places that that's changing that.
It's like a find and replace.
Yeah, totally. Now there's a bunch of other cool things that we can do too. So if we want, we can make this uppercase or lowercase specific by putting a C. I don't know why it's a C, but we do backslash uppercase C and then /, and then that will look for just ones that are uppercase and ignore some of the lowercase ones, which is pretty wild. And then we can also put a C at the end of this, which will ask us to confirm each one, which is really helpful. So if we're not sure that we want to do every one, we can hit this. I'll say, okay, this first one, is that right? Yeah, change that to Lego. Next one, no, don't change that to Lego. Next one, yes, Lego.
Nice.
No, yes, and skip. All that kind of stuff. So anyway, super handy for making those kind of like system or those file-wide changes.
Very cool. I feel like if someone really gets good at Vim and they go like on job interviews and just mention that, they'll probably get like bonus points just for gym karate.
I have noticed it's so funny because like if I ever do any live coding at conferences or on live streams or inside videos, I do get a lot of comments of like, hey, particularly with the surround stuff, like how did you add those quotes around that thing or like change that text, that tag so quickly? And yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, whoa, what was that?
Yeah,
so definitely some kudos for those.
Well, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for all this. But at this point right now, it's time for our next segment, our lightning round. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Yeah, let's go.
All right. All right. So very simple. We're just going to ask like a few questions, and within a couple of seconds, just answer. First thing off the top of your head. All right. Number one, your biggest pet peeve.
Oh man. Let's say in the code land, just bad pull requests, maybe ones that are like it's just code and they didn't put a good title or description or examples or what to look for. Man, that drives me crazy.
I get it. Careless pull requests.
Totally.
All right. Number two, the scariest thing you've ever done for fun.
Oh man, I was talking with my daughter about this actually. There's this ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I haven't been on it in a while, but it's called Tatsu, and you can look up videos of it. But it is nuts. It's a coaster where they strap you in, and then they hook your feet in, and then they pull you against the track, and the whole time you're kind of like Supermaning on the outside of this track.
Oh.
It is absolute chaos, and it's so fun. But yeah, that just scares the crap out of me.
Wow, that sounds scarier than the ones that just drop you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I hate those too, though. Like there's one at, I think, Knott's Berry Farm around here, which is, I think, one of the tallest ones of those. And yeah, you're like 30 stories in the air or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but I think it's pretty dang high. And then just like brutal.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Is it GIF or is it GIF?
Oh man, I'm one of those people that I do this with data, the word data as well. If there's two ways to pronounce it, I just alternate. I'm Switzerland about that stuff. So I pronounce it both ways. Data, GIF, GIF.
Depends on the audience, right?
Yeah, no, whatever you want it to be, I'm gonna match you. That's the way I roll.
No judging other, other ways to pronounce it.
Yeah, no judgment, no judgment.
Like Seinfeld. Not that there's anything wrong with it. All right, you can pronounce it whichever way you want. All right, so before I get canceled, what's one VS Code extension you cannot live without?
Oh, the VS Code Vim extension.
How did I know you were going to say that one? And the last question for our lightning round is first guess if you had your own talk show.
Oh, first guess if I had my own talk show. Well, I did have a show, React Podcast, for a while where I talked with, I mean, I think we did like 123 episodes. It's still live if anyone wants to kind of listen to the backlog. But man, if I was going to have, a first guest, probably Sarah Drasner. I would love to talk with her.
Nice. Cool. All right. So that is it for our lightning round. So glad you came on. If folks want to follow you, where could they reach you?
Yeah, for sure. So I am Chantastic on Twitter. I was going to show one more thing. I don't know if we can pull the
Your screen?
The screen sharing back up again. But I put a page on my site, so it's just chan.dev /vim. So you can go right there. I just fired this up. This has pretty much all of my raw notes, so they're pretty rough. But from kind of some of the things that we covered today, all my raw notes, and then also there's a link to my Vim alphabet playlist on YouTube where we go through every key on the keyboard and kind of talk about what it does in Vim. So it's a little bit older. It's from like 2019, I think, but Vim hasn't changed really since then, or Vim motions haven't really. So a really great place to learn. If you want to follow me there, it's at Chantastic on YouTube as well. So those are probably the best places to follow me, Twitter and YouTube.
Awesome. And I like that you had a lot of your notes right there on the
stuff.
They look a lot friendlier than the chart. No shade.
Yeah, and it's mostly just the stuff that we covered today, so a very limited set, but yeah.
Cool. And for us folks, thanks for joining. If you want to follow us, you already know about if you're watching on YouTube, you already know about our YouTube channel @code, but we also have a TikTok channel, as you saw from our earlier segment, and that is @vscode. But until our next stream, enjoy your weekend and week. And again, thanks, Mike, for joining. This has been awesome. Okay.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you guys later.